Unashamed, the recovery podcast.
And hello, recovery family, and welcome back to another episode of the Unashamed Recovery Family. Let's cut that.
Oh, look at there. Oh, look at that.
The last 3 episodes I've done that.
All right, and watch me breeze through my...
All right, hit it again. We don't need another clap, just hit the timer. Wow. And hello, recovery family, and welcome back to another episode of the Unashamed Recovery Podcast with Josh and Drew. That's Drew, I'm Josh, and on the Unashamed Recovery Podcast, we're all about 2 things. We're about it's okay to not be okay, and that there's healing in the story of our scars. And Drew, what's the other thing that we're about?
Basically, it's our sole mission to tell stories of addiction by real people. That way we can break the stigma of addiction. That way we can actually get people to understand that there's real people out here that are really in real recovery, that are actually breaking through some of the chains that were placed on them, whether it be by God or by other means. You know, we want to get these stories out there.
Most definitely. And, you know, last month we talked about living unashamed. The month before that we talked about how to forgive and kind of fixing brokenness and what biblical reconciliation looks like. And, you know, it's been a while since we've had a testimony episode, and so you're in luck for today. So on today's episode, I'm super excited to be back into testimonies. We haven't had a testimony since before Christmas.
It's been a while.
It has
for
been
sure.
a while.
Definitely.
I've enjoyed our topic episodes because we've gotten into some really good topics.
That last one was pretty deep.
It was.
Pretty
And the
deep.
one with Pastor Jim with reconciliation. But today, for all of you who have asked, we're back on testimonies. And what's even more specific about today's episode, I'm about to introduce our guest. And most of the time, I've got a list of things that I have to introduce them by. Doctor of such and such, by such and such. And there's a long list of accolades. But what I love about today's guest, there is none of that. Because our guest today is just a normal person like me and Drew. There's no doctor, there's no pastor, there's no author. It is a regular person who's gone through the fire and has come out to talk about it. Today, our guest is Kristen.
Surviving the fight.
And I am so glad that I got that name right, because what y'all haven't seen is about 10 minutes of me saying the wrong name. So I'm glad I got the name right. And Kristen, it is very nice to have you.
If y'all could have seen the look that Josh was getting just a little while ago. Oh.
So, Kristen, it's so nice to have you on the show. Join us today to talk about your story. And, you know, I asked this question to all of our guests who are giving their testimony, and I'm going to ask you, as we look and start off with your story, what would be, if you had to write a story about your life, what would chapter 1 be called?
I would say chapter 1 would be called Taz. Because that was the nickname when I was little.
So that's not your normal chapter 1 title. And
I have to know. I have to know.
We're going to dive into this. I want to know too. So what does early childhood Kristen look like? What does that, where does that start at?
Because it sounds chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty much. I was just a mess. I was always busy. I was happy to be alive, my mom would say. I was super happy. But I was always going everywhere. So she just called me Taz, I guess, for that reason. Just spinning out everywhere. From childhood, I was actually very blunt and honest also when I was a child. Like, something would happen and they'd say, "Who did this?" And I'd be like, "Me." Shoot. But as a childhood, or in my childhood, I'd say some things happened when I was younger. And I lived in a broken home, I'd say, like A lot of people are what we would call normal nowadays. Just my mom and my dad got divorced when I was about 5. That might have been when Taz came along, running rampant, but
So coming from that broken home came before you were 5.
yeah.
So
Lying,
it's
cheating.
it's so amazing out of all these stories that we get through, it's always going back to something in childhood at an early age.
Yeah.
You know,
But we've talked about how that early trauma is what normally gears somebody up for some kind of desolate future. But it's always that comeback that does pretty great.
ladies and gentlemen, we just had the first ever on-camera feature of the Mad Russian. Hey, Joe Rogan has Jamie, and we've got the Mad Russian.
Amen.
So yes, so getting back to it. So, broken home, age 5, kind of when Taz was born. So, so take us off from there.
I still have to know. Did you do the task thing where you run around? Did you do
Don't
it?
think so.
No?
You would have to ask my mom that. I don't think so. I am. And I was an outdoorsy girl, so I was kind of tomboyish too. So I was always up in the barns and the trees, and so maybe that had part to do with it too. But
So where in all of that, you got the broken home, you've got all that early trauma, you're kind of pushing forward, but where does it all kind of start to go downhill for you?
it didn't really start to go downhill, other than like that lying, cheating, and abuse. My parents splitting up. My childhood wasn't really that bad. I got good grades when I went to school. I had done modeling for a while. I had friendships and everything, but it was 8th grade that I started experimenting with drinking and smoking marijuana. And then it wasn't until after high school when I tried the harder drugs. So all through high school, I'd skip and stuff, but I was mainly just drinking and smoking weed.
So
Interesting fact though. I wouldn't say fun fact. The crazy fact is 82% of teenagers that start drinking in middle school end up becoming an addict in their adulthood. 82%. That is outrageous. But
that almost sounds made up.
It's a lot.
but it's not.
I know that
is a true fact.
That number
82%.
is so outrageous, it sounds made up.
82% of kids who drink in middle school end up being future addicts later on in life.
I believe it's a gateway,
Yeah.
and it's
So-
legal to a certain age,
So, and talking about
obviously
that.
eighth grade it wasn't.
So talk about that. They talk
It
about
was
how,
7th grade for me, so I can relate.
Yeah.
they talk about how marijuana is a gateway drug.
Right.
How alcohol is a gateway drug. But I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about how it's not necessarily that the marijuana is a gateway or the alcohol is a gateway. It's because you're drinking alcohol, so you're hanging around a crowd of people that are drinking alcohol in middle school.
Yeah.
And then when you start with the marijuana, well, then you're hanging around a different crowd that smokes marijuana in middle school. And then when you're in high school, you're hanging around some shady people who are doing,
The existential stuff.
yeah. And it's the crowd that is, that's where the problem is. It's a gateway to a different crowd.
Yeah.
Definitely the people, places, and things
Yeah.
matters.
Big time.
Yes.
Big
You don't
time.
realize until later on, or I didn't. It took me a long time to realize that doesn't matter, but
Yeah, most definitely matters. Pastor Jim was talking about, hey, show me the 5 people that you're hanging around, and that's going to be your future.
You're going to be the 6th one.
Yeah.
So anyway, enough of all that. We're talking about stuff we weren't talking about. I want to talk about something that we haven't talked about, and that's you. So high school, you're talking about how you're diving into some different stuff in high school, but
yeah.
what kind of high school student were you? I mean, were you the typical weed student? Like, you know, you got that student who's on marijuana, you know, they're falling asleep in class, their grades are suffering, were you that type, or were you because there's some people who are an excellent student.
Functioning.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're suffering.
But they're behind the scenes. They're living a double life.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked to, like, you know, and I know we're about to go into who we've talked to before, but several people, you know, their grades were awesome. But that was that double life. You know, if I can make my grades good, I can shield what I'm doing back here because nobody's going to worry about it, or nobody's going to worry about
Looks
me.
like you're doing okay.
Yeah, you know, because that's what people were worried about the most. They're not really worried about your mental well-being or health at that point in time. They're just like, well, are the grades good?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're a great student, but you know, you don't know what's going on at home.
Right.
So was that like that? What was for you? Or?
I had the pretty good grades. There was a couple of classes I struggled in, but which by the grace of God I passed because I struggled like mentally in school, focusing and remembering and understanding. So he definitely got me through that. And that was something I was going to say too. I wasn't raised in church and didn't even know Jesus all through this time of childhood and high school. But my grades, they were all right. And then the weed, I was smoking it, but I was still functioning. I wasn't falling asleep. I'd skip school to go smoke it, but yeah, I was functioning on it. So,
Man, it's insane that people, you know, kids in high school, you know, that's what, I can't say that.
But it's the exposure that surprises me. You know, even for me, you know, going back to my days in high school, the exposure that the stuff that, you know, my parents knew nothing about at school.
yeah.
You know, it was, there was coke, there was weed, there was, you know, pills, but it was all over the place.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, but like, I want to take this to another step because for me, you know, I drank in high school. That was the ultimate. But for me, though, I was skipping school to go and have sex.
Yeah.
But that was from the porn and sex addiction that I was already struggling with in high school.
Right.
So, you know, y'all were skipping school to go and, you know, do
Different kind of high.
Yeah, you were skipping school to go, you know, for weed, and you were doing coke. My God, high school, coke. But here I was, you know, for that. But it's a different high. Yeah, it's just the same. You know, you're looking for the same thing. Yeah. But you know, but anyway, so let's get out of high school.
I'm laughing because she got the giggle fit. I don't know it.
She's probably thinking back to when I called her Katie.
Yeah, probably so.
So let's go ahead and let's move on along because the clock is ticking and let's go ahead and move out of high school. You know, we kind of like to kind of center the story around high school and touch on it, but we don't want that to be the focus of the story. We want to move past that into, you know, what happened afterwards. So after high school, was there a college Katie? Oh, college Katie. Was there a college Kristen?
There it is.
There it is again.
There it is.
There
Was there
Ladies and
college
There was
Kristen?
not a college Kristen.
Or was there,
Ladies and gentlemen, he is going to
addiction,
get his eyes clawed out on camera.
or did addiction take you down another path aside from that?
It did, but I ended up getting pregnant when I think I was 22. And that was when I started the harder drugs. Like I had dibble-dabbled in a couple of harder drugs before that, but I didn't get addicted to anything. And
So is this while you were pregnant, or was this right
before,
after? Before.
at that time. Yep, I got pregnant when I was 22, and then my first son, he has a condition, and the father of that son, he wasn't much help. So I ended up taking opiates because I had back issues from the epidural after I had him. And I had realized, you know, hey, it took the pain away and it gave me energy, and I don't have any help over here. So I ended up taking more and more. And of course I thought, you know, I wouldn't ever get super bad, but I did. So it went from opiates to just harder drugs and more and more and more. And
The snowball effect.
yeah, eventually it was just whatever I could get my hands on whenever.
So did the opiate start out as a prescription?
No, it was always street bought.
Right.
So what's interesting though is like what we've heard from Shauna is so many opiate addictions start from that prescription.
Yeah.
So many people who are involved in a wreck
Definitely.
surgery,
Yeah.
they get that prescription, they get addicted to it, but they think that it's okay because, hey, it's a prescription.
My doctor gave me this,
Yeah.
you know.
So I wanted to clarify because, that so many people are struggling with
Illegal
that.
about it.
She said it was a street pharmacy, so.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, it led into other things. And then I had my second son. In 2010 and then 2013. And for him, I couldn't get off the drugs. My first son, I ended up getting sober for. Got sober for, so I was smoking weed. And then my second son, I wasn't able to get off the opiates and the Adderall and just everything. So when I had him, he ended up having withdrawals in the hospital. And I was still so caught up in my addiction that I was still having my ex bring me painkillers and stuff in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
While I'm miserable because my son's miserable. It was just a very deep, hard place that I just felt very stuck. Very stuck. So that's when, I was deep in that addiction. Opiates and benzos were my drug of choice.
So was that the deepest that you ever got inside that addiction? Was at that moment where you're in the hospital and you're still wanting it like that?
It wasn't my breaking point.
Well, it's always, there's a moment where we get to the deepest, darkest place that we've ever gotten in our addiction. And we think that we're at our lowest.
Right.
But something will happen and we find ourselves, we're much lower than we ever thought that we would go.
Yeah.
We're well beyond that low point of our life.
Right. We've hit the bottom of rock bottom,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah, so,
I definitely felt really
I mean,
low.
the cycle to me is just like a tornado, if you think about it. It's a downward spin, and it's destroying everything in its path as it's going. It's crazy.
And I didn't know there was a way out either. I thought that was it,
Yeah.
I didn't think there was a way out of it, so I thought that was my life until I found Jesus.
so you didn't think there was a way out of it. So did you think that you were alone in that here I am, I'm the only person that's going through this, there's nobody else out there? Did that ever cross your mind?
I knew that other people were doing it just because I was doing it with them here and there, but I did feel alone in it. And especially like somebody had asked me, what is one of the loneliest moments you've felt in your life? And it was when I had my second son and then I got pregnant again like 2 years later. And that was a baby girl I was going to have. And I miscarried her. And then I had to have, I can't remember what they're called, where they go in with the needle and take a test. And they had done that, so I don't know if I miscarried her because of that, because there's a 1 in so many chance that you could miscarry, or if it was because I still was on drugs. So, but I was so far along, I had to go and have a DNC, I think they're called, is what they do for abortions. But they had to do one of those, and I had asked my baby daddy to go with me, but he was also on either heroin or opiates at the time, and he was nodding out so bad that I couldn't stand to look at him, so I told him to just leave. So I had to have that surgery done, and when I woke up, I was all alone. I had lost my baby. So I felt very alone in that time, but I had went through a session, and they had asked me to, close my eyes and ask Jesus, where was he in that time? Because at that time, I still didn't know about Jesus, but after I gave my life to Jesus, I did this session and did that, and he showed me that he was right there with me and that he had my baby girl, and it gave me a peace. And also after I got sober and saved, he had showed me her in a dream, and it gave me peace that she's, okay, she's with him and everything's cool. But that was one of the loneliest times that I'd felt super just empty and alone.
Man.
Yep. But he was with me.
Almost choked me up, to be honest. I was just kind of like,
There's been very, very few moments.
well, we're both of us are speechless.
Yes, that is something that I don't have any experience in,
I'm sorry you went through that.
and that is something that
It wrecked me.
There's nothing that I can say about me, because anything that I say about that is out of complete ignorance, because I've never experienced that. But that is something that, for you to be sitting here today that after going through that is just, man, that's a testament right there.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. And I was going to name her, again, this is before I even knew about Jesus, I was going to name her JC. And after, the Lord showed me that, and
Oh, wow.
I started learning about Jesus, I was like, wow, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
JC.
Man.
It's like, that's so cool. He was with me. He's always with us. He never leaves
So in
us
a
or
way, he was
forsakes us.
speaking
Yeah.
to you through that.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Man.
I didn't realize it at the time. But that's that looking back.
So, after that had happened, did the light come on and you saw the error of your ways and you changed, or
No.
did that sink you further?
I kind of went further. I just switched drugs because I was, like I said, on the opiates mainly, benzos, Adderall type stuff. And then at this time, I started drinking heavier again and started doing cocaine and crack. And then that's when I got with my husband right now, who I'm actually going through a divorce with at this moment. I had gotten with him, and he's from here, was there visiting, we got together, and then he ended up moving back here not long after we got together, and I decided, because when I was doing the crack and the cocaine, that was when DCFS was called on me for my first 2 kids. They showed up at the house, and I lost temporary custody of them. I still don't have custody of them till today, or today. My sister has temporary custody of them, but they're well taken care of. They're healthy, happy, stable, and I've still been kind of moving around, so I'm thankful that they're still, happy and taken care of now. But at that time, yeah, they came and took temporary custody of them, and then so my husband, he moved back here, and I was like, I'm going to get my life on track. I said, I'm going to move there, I'm going to be with you, I'm going to get sober and get things figured out. And so I had tried to drive here drunk, and my car broke down, so I had to go back home. So I lost my car, I lost my job because I had called off that day. Had already lost the temporary custody of my kids, and then I was about to lose my apartment when I was like, I got to do something different. And that's when I tried to come here. I sold enough stuff out of my apartment to get a train ticket, and I moved here, and it was like, you would think when you got on that train, that's what I got here on a train, but that you would,
Sounds like a country song.
right?
You already called this country earlier.
I'm like, they say you can still hear my northern in me, but I feel like I'm kind of country now.
I hear the northern. I hear the big time.
Dang it.
So what part?
One day. Up by Wisconsin, kind of.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, you can.
You really heard it then. Now, Wisconsin.
From where? One more time.
Up by Wisconsin.
She tried to change it.
Goodness.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
It's the O's for me. It's the
Wisconsin. But yeah, I thought the piece of Jesus, and I didn't even know that's what it was when I got on that train, because I thought I was going to be a complete wreck, leaving everything. I didn't even tell anybody. And I got on the train, and I just felt at peace. Like everything was going to be okay. I didn't know how, when, where. And I got here, and sure enough, I had never tried meth. So when I got here, that's what I got on. I broke up with Miguel, who I'm going through a divorce with right now. I broke up with him and went out and started doing meth for about 7-8 months. And that's when I just lost what was left of me. I didn't know the people I was running with because I wasn't even from here. So I didn't know if I was going to eat, live, sleep, where, who I was with, anything. And I got to a point where I didn't care either because I had just lost everything that meant something to me. But little did I know I lost everything that I loved and meant something to me to find Jesus and everything that truly matters. So it works out. He works all things out for the good of those who love him.
Well,
and are called. But
sometimes you got to empty the bottle to get fresh water poured in.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you could have brackish water in that bottle all day and drink it from it. It's disgusting.
Right.
Right? But if you want fresh water, you got to pour it out.
Yeah.
You know, so God was probably separating
For sure.
everything that you did not need, you know, as far as, you know, the people you were around, heck, even the car.
He's
you know?
still been doing that.
Yeah,
He's still been.
it's like we had the episode on pruning.
Yes.
You know, so it's a pruning process.
Yes.
He's just taking these things so you can grow and just snipping it off of you.
Yep.
You know, so you can grow and be fruitful
Exactly.
and bear fruit.
Amen.
You know, sometimes, you know, we think that what we're going through is punishment
Yeah.
because of our sin. But, you know, it's not necessarily punishment. Sometimes it's just the pruning to get us to the place that we're supposed to be at.
Right.
That
So-
trusting his way.
Yes, most definitely. So, all of that happened. Out there, you done worked your way up to meth, correct?
Yep.
Whew.
Yep. I stood in front of guns. I had guns held at me. I just didn't care anymore.
Man. So,
Yep.
the meth, was that enough? When you opened up your eyes one morning, and you're like, man, I finally worked my way to meth. Was that what did it for like, hey, I need to get some help? Was that the moment? Or were we still out there?
Well, for me, I felt like I had just lost. I did lose everything, and it was like the drugs didn't even matter to me anymore. Like I was out there with the meth, but I wasn't trying to get it. I wasn't asking for it. Like people would give it to me, but I wasn't even seeking it anymore because I was like dead. I
Right.
was numb. I didn't care about nothing at that time. And in fact, I had asked somebody, I had felt so dead and like I was in hell that I had asked them, did I die and go to hell? Like I thought maybe I didn't even make it on that train here. So I just felt like I was in hell. And so eventually, after that 8 months, I was staying at a place, and when I was on the meth, the Lord would reveal himself to me. I still didn't know him. I hadn't given my life to him or anything, and he kept revealing himself to me through, because I'd be snooping through stuff or see pictures and stuff, and it was like his face would stick with me, or these people's notes would stick with me. Certain things would just stick with my spirit. He kept leading me to churches, and I didn't know. I didn't have a clue what was going on until after, but after that, like 8 months of doing meth, I had nowhere to go. The people kicked me out of the house that I was staying in because the one person went to jail. And so I was in Clinton, and I just had nowhere to go. I had like $5. I didn't know where I was at the time. I didn't know who to call. So the police came, and they asked for my ID, and I gave it to them. And the police officer ran it, and he was like, nothing's coming up. It's like you don't even exist. And I just felt like that was totally what I felt like right now. Like I didn't even exist. Who am I? What am I even here for? I didn't know what was going on. But so I went to the police station, and after that, I had been like 2 days sober when that happened with the cop, just sleeping on the people's couch. And after that, it was like the Lord just completely delivered me from all of it. Like he completely took the desire out of me and away from me. And after that, I never picked up another drug, and that was June of 2016. So this June, I'll be 6 years. So it was like I hit rock bottom, but I didn't go to a rehab. I didn't do Celebrate Recovery yet. I did check myself into a rehab at one time, but I checked myself back out after a week. It snuck Xanax in with me, so he knew I wasn't ready. But yeah, so it was like that, just the Lord getting me out of those people, places, and things, and I was ready. Like I wanted out of that so bad. I just had no idea there was a way out.
But he was showing you, to me, he was showing you there was another way. Even though you weren't ready, you know, you said you were sneaking the Xanax in, but even though you weren't ready, he was preparing a place.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I love about Psalms 23, is I will prepare a table for you before your enemies, you know, or with your enemies.
That's not Psalm 23.
Yes, it is.
Psalm 23 is Lord's my shepherd.
What's the end of it?
He prepares the table.
It's the second time you've done that to me.
Pull up Psalm 23.
Right? Pull it up.
We ain't got time for that. We'll pull up in post, and we'll put it on the screen.
We will reference this.
We'll pull it up in post.
Psalm 23.
That's the second time you've done that, and I'm right. You hear me? I'm right.
Let's mark that one down. Drew's right. May the 7th. 7/29. Drew's right.
Most of the time I'm just talking.
Yes.
I can relate to your story so much, only because I ended up doing something I said I would never do, and that was shooting up men.
Yeah.
I ended up living in an abandoned house. I no
Yeah.
water, but I was hanging around these people I thought cared so much about me,
Mm-hmm.
But what they cared about was getting high. That was
Right.
it,
Yeah. Yep.
And my connects to the next person and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was outrageous. It's a
It's just
completely, it's an insane lifestyle. You're thinking the next morning, well, I'll stop. I don't really need it today. And the next thing you know, your high as a kite again.
Right.
And you're out just staring at stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it be,
Yes.
I'm
For sure.
I am dead serious.
I know,
dude.
I know.
Like I've seen people
I've heard the story
I
of
was
people.
awful on it.
like I would literally go to
One of
Walmart and
those.
stand there for 6 hours in the
That,
same
that right
aisle.
there, that's the stories I've heard is people in Walmart who's been there for like just hours.
Oh yeah, that was big time. But I had nowhere else to go.
Right.
And that would be my chill spot. That would be me being around other people. It's
Ah,
crazy.
15.
I was opposite. I'm like, get me away from you.
Eventually it got that bad to where I was just like I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so that's why I just caved myself in that abandoned house.
Yeah.
I had no water, no power, no food. It was just whatever I could scrape up
Yeah.
at some points in time. But yeah,
The
I know.
rats living in there.
I named him Fightful. I'm being dead serious.
I'm getting the biggest picture of like Encanto and you're Bruno living in the walls with the rats and you're doing the soap opera little cards with the rats.
God is so good. That's all I have to say.
Yes, definitely.
Man.
Definitely.
So you have come back in, you found your way to the police station, you got the 2 days sober on your own. And that is remarkable in itself because not many people outside of a necessary force like rehab or IOP or anything like that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have willpower on their own inside active addiction to go and get 2 days sober. So that is remarkable. So after that, where does the story go from there?
After that, I went ahead and my sister had sent money to get a bus ticket back home. But when I got there, I had burnt so many bridges and they had, moved on with their schedules and stuff that it wasn't working out with me staying anywhere. So I moved to Wisconsin and a man there was growing weed, and even though I wasn't smoking it, I still stayed sober. I told him that I would stay there and help him grow it to live there because I had nowhere else to go. So I did that for like 7 months.
And how hard was that? How hard was it to live there, growing the
sober.
weed and stay sober? How hard was that?
For me, I just thought weed was really pretty. So it wasn't that hard for me because I still got to see how pretty it was, but
So was it the color or the shape?
it was the color. So it wasn't that hard for me.
Okay.
And it was just really, the Lord really just uprooted all of that out of me, even that. But weed, I'd get paranoid on it. So for that wasn't really my drug of choice, even though I smoked it. That was more of a social thing in high school, I think.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So out of all of what you had talked about, what is your drug of choice? What would you say was your go-to?
It was opiates and benzos.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's amazing with people who you see that they were on alcohol and that was their drug of choice, and then when they got that taste of the opiates, that was their drug of choice. Like
Yeah.
that is very, very common. And that's very surprising to me because so many people want to say, well, once alcoholic, always alcoholic. That's sure, but so many people make that progression and it's odd. So you're up there, you're growing weed. Eventually, you got to come back to Mississippi because if not, we wouldn't be here today.
Right.
So when you get back to Mississippi, what does sobriety and recovery look like?
Well, I had ended up getting back with Miguel at that time and got pregnant with my son Liam. He's still with me. He's just turned 5. So I do have my one son with me. And then Miguel had to finish up jail time, so he went back in. And during that time is when I started going to church. The whole time in Wisconsin, I was reading the Bible, reading, because Jesus was so new to me and fresh, and he's still amazing. I still love Jesus and the Bible. I really love him. But so I was doing that to help me stay sober also. And when I got here, and he went back to do his time, and I started going to church, and he was in the trustee program, so he was allowed to go to the Point Church at that time. So the Point was doing the Celebrate Recovery on Monday nights, which they still do. So that's how I got kind of introduced to Celebrate Recovery. And even though I had already been, I was like probably 2 years clean already at that time, but still it's for hurts, hang-ups, and habits, and I have those. So, you know, I started going to that, and I graduated that, and still continue to go. It's such a great program. So I do that, and that's how I got introduced to Celebrate Recovery.
Awesome. And I want to take just a moment, and I want to shout out The Point and Brandon and Pastor Jim. I want you to allow Palmer and the guys at Giving Grace to use pyrotechnics for their concert and their worship, because they deserve it. Palmer, you're welcome. I love you guys.
Yes.
Anyway, getting back to it. So yes, so Celebrate Recovery, you know, me and Drew, we are living examples of Celebrate Recovery. We love it.
Yes.
And, you know, it's just by coincidence that that's where your journey wound up. But I love your journey because it's not your typical, like, so many people do not find sobriety on their own.
Right.
Especially while they're in active addiction. And I love that yours was just a matter of, for lack of a better word, willpower. Was that kind of,
Yeah.
It was just willpower.
Ready.
Yeah.
That wanting it.
So many people never get there on their own. Like there's usually rehab, or, you know, I already touched base on that, but that's just amazing. So you've got the Celebrate Recovery. So is that what you're currently doing now to continue in your recovery journey and to stay sober? Or was there something else that you're adding into that for your 12 step?
It's mainly Celebrate Recovery and just going to church Wednesday, Sunday, not putting myself into those people, places, or things that could cause the relapse. That's important.
That's huge.
And just really, really seeking Jesus. Like I said, I'm going through a divorce right now, and that started about 8 months ago, and that was another one of my darkest places. And just seeking Jesus and his presence is key for me. Like some people, they'll end up going back out onto drugs when those super hard times hit, but me, I'm like, I gotta dig in deeper to the Lord, because he's truly what's keeping me sober and sane, and he's the only one who can deliver me out of those areas.
And I love that you touched on that, because so many people, myself included, when I go through a deep, dark time, I want to white knuckle it myself. And I was like, I'm going to get myself through this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not going to bother God with this. I'm not going to dig deeper. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think we get into this place where we kind of get this wrong idea about grace. You know, if grace was enough for your salvation, then grace is enough to keep you going through every trial and every temptation that you'll ever go through. But we don't get that. We want to white knuckle it ourselves and do it ourselves. And that's a great lesson to pick up from this, is stop trying to do it on your own, and stop trying to do it yourself, and trust in God, lean into God more, depend on him in those situations. I love that. That's so great. I think you're probably one of the first people that has come on here in your testimony and has said that. And I think that's so important for people new in faith recovery to really see that in action. That's what we're getting here. So as we wrap up, like we always do, I've got some questions for you. You're on the spot.
Okay.
So
I feel like I've been on the spot.
But so, you know, first of all, I just want to say, you know, that I'm so proud that you have come on here and you have shared with us, because, you know, to go from that childhood trauma and going into, you know, the myth and all that, to go from that into where you're at today, that is where the hope is.
Yeah.
And, you're truly a lighthouse for people who are still in the darkness of addiction. And I just, I want to congratulate you on that because that is so awesome. And I'm proud of you. You know, as I ask you these questions, you know, try to think of the person out there listening as you answer these.
Okay.
So number one, what is the biggest thing that you have taken from your story? What are some lessons learned?
Some lessons learned. Don't give up. If you got to crawl into your next moment, then crawl, but don't give up. Because I wanted to give up when this divorce started. I just wanted to crawl in a hole for a little while, and, you know, don't give up. Just keep trusting that the Lord's got better for you, and He's going to deliver you out of it, and He will. Just keep, you know, putting that foot right after another.
Most definitely, man. Yeah, that's good advice. Write that one down, guys. So number two, what would you tell somebody that's going through the same thing that you came out of?
There is hope, and the Lord's got a plan and a purpose for you. Where you're at isn't the end. And again, if you just keep hanging on, one day at a time, one moment at a time.
Most definitely. Man. Yeah. One day at a time.
Yes.
You know, that's all we got.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I tell my guys, 24 hours is the record for sobriety. And it's never been broken, only tied.
Yeah.
And so that's all we got, one day at a time. Man.
And the enemy, I think, wants us to be anxious about the future and depressed on the past. So if you just stay in the moment, that one moment at a time.
Yep, most definitely. Man, good stuff. So number three, what impact do you think that the old you has on the current you?
What impact? I would say a big one, because I don't want to be that girl. So it's a person I don't want to be, but I've learned from.
Yeah. Well, with me, I cannot stand my past. Like, I hate the person that I was.
Yeah.
But I have to embrace the person that I was, because the person that I was is what led me to the person I am today. And so, you know, we get to that point where we want to go back and change the past and change the old to us, but, you know, it would change us today.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I agree.
Number four, and this is the big one. Drum roll, please.
They won't be big.
So, once again, thank you for coming by and sharing your incredible story. And as a thanks for your willingness to be so open and vulnerable in an effort to be unashamed of your story. And I know that's not always an easy thing to do. We want to show our appreciation. I want to give you just a few moments of an open mic. Our show is your show. And if you had the opportunity right now to say anything that you want to say in an effort to reach that one person who may be listening that needs to hear what you have to say.
I feel like I'm on kind of repeat with these last questions, but again, just don't lose your hope, because I've been in those places where it's just complete darkness and you don't think you're ever going to make it out, or that's just it, you're stuck. But that's not it. You were created for a bigger purpose, and the Lord is with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. And if you just reach out to Him, call out to Him, ask Him to help you, to lead you, to guide you, He will. He loves us so much, and He doesn't want His children hurting and stuck in those dark places, so He wants to free you. And the Celebrate Recoveries, that's just another place to go and get extra freedom, more freedom. You know, like the Lord delivered me from the drugs, but then I had to get delivered from all these other things. So just seek these places that are going to uplift you and encourage you. People are really, truly going to care about you, unlike the streets. That just keep your head up, that you're loved, even when you don't feel like it. And I don't know, I guess that's probably about it. If I can do it, you can do it. Shoot. And Jesus will leave the 99 for you, because he did for me.
And that's all the time we got for today's show, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in and listening once again to us. You can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on TikTok because we're trendy like that. But if you want to email us and ask us a question, if you want to maybe recommend somebody that we need to speak to, interview, or if you want to recommend a topic, if you want to tell us how great or how bad we're doing, we want to hear that too. You can email us at unashamedpodcast@yahoo.com. Unashamedpodcast@yahoo.com. And Kristen, if somebody wants to message you and maybe get you to come and speak at their recovery group, or if they want to get you to come and speak on their recovery podcast, what is a great way that they can email you?
My email is going to be my name, Kristen Burgess, KristenBurgess3@icloud.com.
Awesome. And that's going to be on the screen for you. We'll also have that in the show notes. And and that's all the time we got for today. And until next time, remember to be unashamed.
Stay clean.